today I'm going to be discussing how custom stamps can be created within Workbench. So first of all, what is a stamp? So stamps are self-defined, are predefined visualizations that you can use to quickly create custom dashboards. So instead of having to configure portlets individually, they're predefined and you can assign a measure to them and the stamp will generate. So this will only work with the Measure Factory. So this is a Measure Factory only functionality. And like all of our portlets on Measure Factory applications, all of our numbers are live. So if you click on a number, you will launch the default analysis. And then you can also launch the measure info, which will show you all the information about the measure. So any information that is associated with the measure within your factory can be exposed through a stamp. So as I mentioned, stamps are coded within Workbench. And the main function of this presentation is to show you the basics of how that works. So we go in Workbench, and all stamps, regardless of what they end up looking like, all start with the same basic template, using tags of name, category, for self-service, size, options, style, and component. So first, the name. The name is one of the required fields along with size, and that is what you want to name your stamp. So when you add the stamp to the dive port, this is the name that's going to show up. We recommend that you name it something that is indicative of what the stamp does, so that all users are aware of what they're adding to their page. Then the category is an optional field that allows you to group your stamps together within the dive port stamp selection. So while this is optional, we do recommend, as you're beginning to make custom stamps, you create a category called Customized Stamps to keep track of all of those. Then the For Self-Service tag. So self-service is another functionality which has been discussed in previous sessions, where you can where users without administrative access can quickly create dashboards. Any stamp that has this tag on it will appear on that screen. If this tag is not present, then you will be able to add the stamp to a regular dashboard, but not to a specific self-service dashboard. And then size. So size along with name is the other required tag. So really name and size are the only required fields. And this is going to dictate the size of your stamp. So you set the width and the height, and then this is going to show you, and then this is going to be how big your stamp is. So options. Options control the portlet during the configuration of the dive port page that I'm going to show you in just a second. So the options selected here dictate what the edit portlet looks like and how many measures you can select. So on this stamp, we're using num measures 1, which means that when we add the stamp, it's going to prompt us to look at one measure. So we can go ahead and look at that. And I've set up a page that has stamps of using different option fields. So here is the stamp that we were coding in Workbench, and it shows the num measures 1. So when we go to edit our stamp, we notice it's only asking us for one measure. We couldn't add 2 or 3 measures even if we wanted to. Whereas this stamp uses multi-value, so we can add an unlimited number of stamps. If you wanted to set it, say, so a user could only define 3 measures, then you could use a num measures 3 option. So then we have the dimensions tag. So we can select one measure, but then we can also say we want to look at it by a dimension. So this is asking us what measure do we want, and we're choosing total discharges. But it's also asking us for a dimension, so we can say facility. So this is just another way to further expose information through the stamps. And then we have the option for no values, so it won't ask you to find any measure or any dimension. It will simply allow you to show factory information such as the beginning month, the ending month, last refreshed and other sort of factory information like that without showing any measures or dimensions. And if you don't set an option, then it will default to asking you for one measure and no dimensions. So then style. So style uses CCS properties to allow you to look at what the stamp is going to look like. Our style here is going to result in that simple white box with the rounded corners, like you saw a second ago. If you wanted to change the background color, the border radius, the shadow, you could do that. You could also use any CCS properties to create any backgrounds that you wanted. So this is very customizable. And that brings us to sort of the meat and potatoes of the stamp, and that's the component section. So the components are where you're going to list what you want the stamp to show. So components contain specifications for all the portlets that you're going to set within the stamp. So each component has its own functionality, options, and limitations. And for the most part, any portlet that you see in the Measure Factory that you might have on your dashboards can be created within a stamp. So that includes charts, indicators, images, matrix portlets, measures portlets, quick views, and text. So let's take a look at that here. So here we have the stamp that we're looking at here. It's our year-to-date stamp because we're looking at the number by year-to-date. So we have our num measures 1, so it prompted us to look for one measure, and now we can set the components. So our first component is this text component, and that's showing us the name of the selected measure. And through the style, we can then look at font, size, and weight. So in addition to the stamp having a style, each component will also have a style. And then we can look at our indicator. So if we want to specify what this number is, we can use our indicator component. We're looking at a text indicator, and then we can set our options. And we can do this for all types of portlets, such as charts and images, etc. So that is what I have. I'd like to point out that we've created a series of stamp videos that you can access through the Demins.com help on how to stamp videos that walk you through not only what I just went through of the tags, but also go more in depth on the components and what you can do with each one. So we recommend you guys check those out, as well as we provide supplementary documentation help for everything that I've mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we have any questions. We do have one question, Marissa. What is DI's recommendation for getting started creating a custom stamp?
Yes, so the best way to create custom stamps is, rather than starting from scratch on a stamp template, is to start with an existing stamp. So you might take this one, our year-to-date stamp, which is kind of our basic stamp, and then you might say, okay, I want the text components. You can copy from here, and you can really use what we've already provided you to then create your own. There's no reason why you should have to start from a totally blank stamp template.
How many custom stamps are there?
Yes, so within each application, when a Measure Factory application is installed, you'll get probably around 40 custom stamps at this point, between self-service stamps and then other portlet stamps that you can use to create your own pages.